So I'm Jaya and I am the product manager for Burlington English. And I'm really happy and thrilled that you all joined on right on time. So we're really excited for this webinar. So today's webinar is going to be on the brain-based learning. And with us, we have Dr. Beena Shivdas Menon. So I would like to introduce her a little bit and then we can start with the session. Dr. Beena ma'am is an accomplished educator trainer, an academic leader with over 3 decades of experience in teaching, teacher development, and corporate training. A PhD in management from Symbiosis International University, she has served as head of the School of Language at Symbiosis and KIIT University, and worked internationally as a lecturer in Thailand. As a training consultant with the British Council in Cambridge, she has led large-scale teacher development projects, designed curricula, and trained educators across India. Her expertise spans English, French, business communication, and teacher training, with strong commitment to empowering learners and educators alike. So I'm really happy to welcome ma'am again. Ma'am, over to you, and looking forward to an interactive session today.
Thank you, Jaya, for that wonderful introduction. Good evening, all, and welcome to the session on brain-based learning. I am Dr. Beena Menon, and I'm pleased to be here with you all in this virtual space. As the contents of the session unfold, and we have this 1 hour session now, we will be looking at what is brain-based learning, why it is important and interesting to know, and how we could make best use of it, of this knowledge, to improve our teaching practice. As we know, brain-based learning is part of cognitive psychology. Cognitive means how we learn something. So there are many theories, and brain-based learning is one of the recent ones that is gaining popularity. Brain-based learning is one of the newer theories, as I said, and it has been proposed through continuing research and findings in neuroscience, in cognitive development, in the research of the mind and the brain, and extensive study in behavior over the last century and a half. Just to give a bit of a background of brain-based learning and its origins, it was first formulated by a lady called Renata Numela Kane and her partner Geoffrey Kane in the 1990s, the early 1990s. During the decade of the 2000s, a psychologist called Eric Jensen has worked extensively on this subject, and he's written many journals, many articles and books on this subject, and now he has become synonymous with brain-based learning. Much of his work is available for free downloadable versions on the internet. So if this topic really interests you further, you can always access more information on the internet. According to brain-based research, the brain processes information that is given to it, but what happens inside the brain is completely unique to each individual. That means that each person's brain processes information differently. Therefore, understanding of a particular thing or learning a particular thing is very unique from person to person. Let's look ahead. Now, I'm sorry. Okay. Here are a few learning theories. Now, as we know, psychologists have been working for about a century and a half in different facets of the brain. Some have worked in memory and how that works inside the brain, how we remember things, how there's long-term memory and short-term memory and quick memory and all sorts of memory, complicated memory. From the time of our birth until the present time, we are constantly gathering memory. How this happens, why we remember, and so on and so forth, has been studied by a set of psychologists. Some other psychologists have worked in behavior, complexes, why we behave the way we behave, and so behavior is one. Some psychologists work in dreams and analyzing dreams. So, there are several psychologists working in different areas of the brain, of the mind. And we are now looking at learning theories, psychologists who have worked in the area of learning and therefore of teaching. That's how teaching is informed. How do we learn? So these are some of the top six, and on the net again, you'll find four top theories, five top theories, six main theories. And I've just sort of given you a list of these over here. So there are lots of learning theories. So in an effort to explain and understand the brain and the mind and the basis of learning and therefore of teaching, of course, various psychologists have worked very hard to design theories for learning and teaching. Now, each of them mentioned here represents an important milestone in the journey of discovery of the mind and how the brain works, the learning process. Each of them have been refuted, of course, by later theories and replaced by newer ones. But they've been important in their own place times as discoveries. The brain-based learning theory is one of the recent ones and has really gained considerable acceptance and popularity in teaching and learning. I have written a sentence in description of these other learning theories. In case you are interested, there's a lot of information available on these other theories, especially constructivist theory. It's quite popular. Connectivist theory is also quite popular in recent times. All right. Now that we have gone over a bit of the background, let us look at what we will be learning today and what this presentation hopes to achieve. Before we go ahead, here are the learning outcomes of the session. I don't wish to make the session too heavy and theoretical. So we will explore BBL, as it's called, brain-based learning, through a few activities. So by the end of the session, we are going to look at these areas, understand how the brain works during the learning process, separate the myths from the facts about the brain, understand overload, cognitive overload, and uh, get some strategies on how we can avoid cognitive overload. So we are primarily going to focus on three main areas. One, how the brain works. Two, what is cognitive overload. And three, classroom strategies to avoid cognitive overload. Now, let's do an interactive true or false. So there's a list of statements that I will now display here. In the chat box, you can choose if the statement that is shown here is either true or it's false. And let's understand how the brain works during the learning process through some of these simple true and false statements. You could type out your answers, either true or false, in the chat box. This is the first statement. Students can learn something without actively paying attention to it. Any choices for true or false? Okay, true, false, false, no, true, false, false. Both. Okay. Okay, now let's look at the statement. I have an equal number saying true and false and a few saying both. All right, let's look at the next statement now. I got the answers. Thank you. All right, we use only 10% of our brain. True, false. All right, many of them are true. Some are saying false. All right, thank you. Let's get on to the third one. Physical activities like brain gym help students learn better through integration of left and right brain. You know, there is this, the line hemisphere, they say, that divides the body into two parts, left and right. And the left brain governs the right side of the body, and the right one governs the left. Okay. Now the brain gym is, these exercises that cross this hemisphere, and this is supposed to help us. All right. I have an equal number of all sorts of answers. It's really nice. All right, let's look at the answers. So the first one is false. And let's look at the answer. Attention drives learning. When we say pay attention, it means actually to take in less rather than take in more, or focus on a few areas, on some part of learning, rather than distraction, less distraction. Attention is a way of throwing away information, that is sorting through information, and it's more like a spotlight, all right, than a, a floodlight. Okay. So the brain allocates its resources very carefully. So when you say pay attention, then you are encouraging students to focus on less rather than more. So how much random access memory, how much can be loaded or processed, and so on. The brain is constantly sorting these things out. So attention is the way we allocate resources of the brain. We need to tell the students what to focus on or pay attention to. Now let's move on to the second statement. It's false. And let's look at the reason why. With neuroimaging, we find that the brain is all the time working. It works all the time, not just 10% of it. Most of the brain is working at different times. And even when we sleep in a state of rest, we use a great deal of the brain. It is processing memories, it is processing impressions, it is sorting things out in, like a fade in, fade out. It's storing certain things. And so what it does is it is active and it cuts out the noise, and it's still, the activation is very heavy. So it's false that we use only 10% of the brain. We use a great deal of the brain all the time. Now, the third statement, physical activities like brain gym, that too is false. And look at the reason why. These sorts of brain gym exercises are not very useful. They do nothing to bring the left and right side of the brain together, or working well in harmony or in synchrony. Exercise in general, even simple physical activity, helps to learn, and also with short and long-term memory. That is physical exercise. So brain gym is not needed. Anyway, our brains are constantly overloaded. So, what we really need is physical exercise. All right. Now let's move on to the next few statements. Some people are more left-brained and some are more right-brained. Next, drinking fewer than 8 glasses of water a day can cause our brains to shrink. All right, true, false, 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 true. All right, all right. Okay, now the third statement, male and female brains are different and we should adjust our teaching accordingly. It's true, is it? All right. Yeah, male and female brains do seem different, don't they? All right, let's quickly check the answers. The first one is false. People are not more left or right-brained. Both hemispheres work in unison, in combination. It's not one or the other doing all the work. They both work together. The next one, the fifth one, is false also. Unfortunately, drinking fewer than 8 glasses of water will not make the brain shrink really, but thirst or severe dehydration can affect the brain, and so can over drinking water, water or fluids. So over drinking is as bad as severe dehydration, but just drinking fewer than 8 glasses will not affect the brain so much. But of course, hydration is helps the entire body. All right. Now, male and female brains. Now, let's see if how they look like. That's also a false statement. All of us are partially male and partially female. All right. We are human beings, so we have an element of humanness, whether it's predominantly male or predominantly female. We have some elements of the other gender within us. All right. So thank you so much for your answers, and I'm really impressed and that you're thinking about all these things. Okay, the last set of true and false statements. It is helpful to determine which of the multiple intelligences students have. There is a multiple intelligence theory as well. So they say we have linguistic intelligence, so we are good at languages or language learning. Then there are mathematical, so logical mathematical intelligence, so we are good at computing, or a musical intelligence, so we are artistically inclined. All right. So yeah, there are more true answers than false here. All right, let's look ahead. Um, the next statement: people have different learning strengths and ways to solve problems. People have different learning strengths and ways to solve problems. Okay, that is also predominantly true as per your choice. Let's see. The more dendrites children grow, that's we are on number 9. The more dendrites children grow, the better. Dendrites are these neural networks that form as we use our brains. So the more active our brains, these dendrites form all over, and these are neural networks. And the last statement: education will not help learning difficulties caused by development differences. All right. True, false, 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 true. Okay, all true. All right. Let's look at the answers quickly so that we have some ground to cover later. All right. Let's look at the answers. So this number 7 is false. And this is the reason why. There is no neuroscience theory to support multiple intelligence theory. Okay. So there are many preferences, but these are not intelligences. All right. So technically, an intelligence and a preference or a skill or an interest, is different from intelligence. So they make a difference between preferences, skills, or interests. So these are not intelligences. These are just skills or interests or preferences. People have different learning strengths and ways to solve a problem. We grow dendrites when we learn. So dendrites are necessary but not sufficient. All right. So ways to solve problems are different in different people. They are not a common thing. And, people may have different learning strengths, but may have different ways to solve problems as well. The more dendrites children grow, the better. False. The brain is plastic and changes throughout our life. It goes on changing even in our old age. And if we keep our brains active. All right. So there are always, these are, there would be answers, there would be supporting theories. And okay, let's just finish the number 10 and I will talk about it. Education helps to an extent to deal with language difficulties. All right. Or, with other difficulties to an extent, but it depends on how much damage there is in the brain, and whether education can really help. um, I'm sorry that all these statements have been false, all right? But these are called neuromyths. And although, like someone said there, that multiple intelligence theory has some base and everything, as I said before, these theories come out, they have some following, they get some support, and then there is someone who comes and refutes the theory, proves otherwise. And of course, it's not just someone doing it arbitrarily. there is just progress in the research and findings in the brains, the neuroscience. All right, and therefore things just become obsolete. Theories come and then they become obsolete, or they are not accepted as sure or certain or 100% foolproof. So I'm sorry, but all these are neuro myths. We have been believing them, but they don't. They are not completely true. All right, now learning is actually inborn, innate, and related to biological and chemical processes in the brain. The teacher's aim should be to increase the speed and efficiency of learning. And as teachers, we should provide an environment that will cultivate learning. We should provide, for instance, activities where all the brain functions will collaborate and perform to maximize learning. Now, some of the questions to ask ourselves as teachers would be, for example, should I force my students to learn, or should I create an environment that encourages learning? Do I give my students a sense of autonomy where the students can choose what they want to learn, what they would like to learn, rather than imposing the topics on them and saying, no, now I have decided this, so let's all learn this, or you must learn this. Do I balance challenges with learners' abilities and time? Do I encourage my learners? Do I encourage communication? We have far too many silent classrooms where teachers say, please keep quiet, silent, don't talk, and so on. Now, our brains are talking type of brains. We like to talk, but we don't encourage as much communication as we should in order to develop certain brain-based skills. Another question to ask is, do I celebrate my learners' milestones? So, or are my learners overburdened with too much information and heavy studies? So, as we move on ahead, we are going to look at cognitive overload and look at how the brain actually functions. All right. Here I have a small little activity, but I cannot, as I cannot instruct you to unmute. Jaya, my colleague will attempt this activity, and then we'll see what we learn from this. All right, this is a brain-based learning activity. As I said, I don't want to burden you all with theory and very heavy theoretical content. So look at this brain activity. What you will expect to see is a list of words. Now, these are words of color, all right, words that denote color. And we know that red looks a certain way or green looks a certain way. The spelling of R-E-D, red, brings out the feeling or the color, that we know, the knowledge of the color that corresponds, or green and so on. All right. Now, in this activity, it's going to test heavy cognitive load. And Jaya is going to attempt this activity. Please, Jaya. So now, Jaya, the instruction is to read the colors and not the words. All right, you'll see a word, but you must read the color. For instance, if the color red is not in red, but in another color, you read the color. All right, let's go. Jaya, ready?
Yeah,
All right,
ready.
go. Quick, in 10 seconds.
Oh, white,
Oh,
blue,
no, it's black, blue, green.
black, blue, green, blue, red, black, blue, yellow, red, black, green, red, green, red, blue, yellow, black, yellow, black, green, black, yellow,
All right, Jaya,
black.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
very
Did we
difficult.
all see that, Jaya? Was that really easy to read, or was it a little bit of a struggle? It was a little bit of a struggle, right? So, what happens over here is that our brain struggles to compute what it is already programmed with. That is, the color white, for instance, or the color green or red is associated with the color that we know, right? But it here the color is different, and we are not expected to read the word, we are expected to read the color. So going, you could see that Jaya was, struggling to compute what she knew to be white as white, but not white, it's black here. Then green doesn't look green, it is blue, and so on and so forth. Would you like to read a book like that? You can answer in the chat if you like. Would you like to read this book where you're struggling heavily? So no, the answer is no, never, because we are pre-programmed with what we know, and here it is a completely different thing, and we sort of struggle to compute. All right. Now this is an example of cognitive overload. Just one moment. Now let's look at cognitive overload and how information is processed in our brains. Now the brain has a sort of time clock, you know. So we must vary instructional activities and spend no more than 12 to 15 minutes on an activity that is on passive listening or passive learning. Let's look at how information is processed by the brain. Now, sensory memory is the incoming memory through all the five senses. Okay. I would like to advance the slide a little bit to the next one so that I explain a little bit this diagram that you can see. Can you see this diagram here? Now, incoming memory is on the left, all right? This incoming memory is information that keeps on coming at us through our sensory organs, mostly our eyes and our ears. So information keeps on pouring at us through our sensory organs, and much of it is instantaneously forgotten. It's like all the time is coming at us, and most of it we forget. Some of that, gets into the sensory memory, as you can see in the next box. Again, over here, there's a potential to forget. There is a part of the memory we forget. Next, some part of the memory, if you're actively working with the memory, for instance, you see a red, green, and yellow signals, at the crossroads, at the signals. And it's coming at you as a signal, and okay, all you're looking for is whether you get the green signal to go or the red signal to stop. Now, once you get your signal, you stop noticing the colors, you just get into movement mode. Okay. Now, whatever you've seen on that signal passes off and it's forgotten as instantaneous memory. You take action, because temporarily it has come into your sensory memory. It comes into your working memory where you take action, all right, and then it is forgotten. So forgetting at these different stages is constantly happening. However, when you rehearse something again and again, when you learn something like learning a poem or learning an answer to a question, or learning your singing alaps, or any type of learning, or your mudras in your dance or something, you constantly rehearse. The brain encodes this information and puts it into the long-term memory. Now, in this long-term memory, it resides and can be retrieved back into your working memory whenever you need to summon it and work with it. I'll go back to the previous slide and look at the slide now. Look at what is written here. Sensory memory is the incoming memory through all the five senses, especially the eyes and ears. It is instantaneous and most of it is forgotten. Cognitive load is the amount of information working memory can hold in the moment. That is right now, for instance, your working memory is very active because you're working with all this information. Working memory is what we are thinking in the moment. Inputs from the sensory memory move to the working memory, but again, there is some bit that is forgotten. Long-term memory is the information from the working memory that is either forgotten or fixed through, okay, through rehearsal or encoding. And so the brain then categorizes this information and puts it away. And then you can summon it whenever you like, bring it back to working memory whenever you need, this information can be retrieved. Now, things to keep in mind about the brain, as I said, the brain has a time clock. So it about 12 to 15 minutes. Beyond that, you should vary the activity, because passive learning, that is students sitting in one place and sitting down at one spot and just listening and listening and listening, the brain gets saturated. Okay, it cannot take in more information than that segment at one time. In fact, they're saying now that in this age of Instagram and other social media, the attention span is even lesser now. And dangerously, someone just randomly spoke the other day saying that it's probably just reduced to 7 seconds at a time. So it's pretty dangerous. Okay. But well, 12 to 15 minutes is good. And I think that is proven even in the classroom. Now, repetition of information, that's very important because it strengthens the connections in the brain. So the brain encodes information most efficiently when content is repeated in multiple ways. So you give information and reinforce it in different ways, and that's how the brain will then fix the information. Active learning is another method when people learn by doing something. So they become energized and they stick with the content, and then they learn more and more. Now let's look at some strategies of cognitive overload. All right, it's when the brain is absolutely saturated. So students tune out of a lecture. I mean, they stop listening. They just stop hearing anything. They struggle with confusing diagrams or have a hard time with complicated verbal, material, and forget most of the information when they're cramming for exams. They find it very difficult to remember. All right. So this is a sign of cognitive overload. So when you see your students' faces glazing over and their eyes are reflecting that they can't understand what you're saying and they're sort of tuning out, change the activity. Make them get up and do something. Vary the activity with giving them something to do with their hands, or show some slides, or make them get up and post some things on the wall, or make them do a group activity, and so on. All right, so vary those activities. Now we've come to strategies. um, the first one is break up the instruction in bullet points or numbered lists to give the students a chance to process the information. Um, Organize these sorts of activities where students, that is individuals, are working alone to begin with, then with the partner, with the person next to them, and then with a group. So it's like a TPS activity, think, pair, share, it's called. So you think for yourself, then you share it with someone, and then you share it in a group, and then share it with the whole class. So this is a think, pair, share activity. Next, you can get students to say, summarize a key idea in a 1-minute summary on what they have learned. This is another way of getting them to remember information better. Work out answers to critical thinking questions. That is, again, the brain is working with some critical thinking uh, activities and skills that are required to solve these questions. It helps the brain to retain more. Um, Next is jot down questions, brainstorm examples, or write down what they're confused about. Okay, so they're working with what they are, their minds, their brains, and they are trying to process the information and fix it, send it to the long-term memory. Students can also fill out KWL charts. I suppose you know what is a KWL chart. It's what you want to know, then what, yeah, what you are learning, what you are working with, you're learning, and then finally the difference between what you didn't know, that is what you wanted to know, what you have learned now, and the difference. Or a flow chart or draw a concept map. So some information which is too subjective and big, get them to put it into a Venn diagram or a concept map, or into a schema where, there's a title and there are subtitles and information is organized in a diagrammatic way. When learning a new skill, break tasks down into parts. The students view one step in the process and then practice and then go to the next step and so on. Brain breaks are very important. Between focused thinking. Now, examples from pre-primary point of view, I think you can adapt these. These are generally for young learners. So you could help, could adapt the activities to your learner group. Okay, coming back to here, brain breaks are very important. As I said, that the brain is not able to absorb too much at one point, or at all at one go. And we expect that of learners, that okay, I have read out a whole lesson, you're supposed to remember it and know about it. That's not possible. So chunking and cutting into sort of concise portions is very important. Okay, brain breaks also are physical, like a short walk, like a gallery run, for instance. Make them to do some chart work and put it up on the wall. That makes for a short walk across the classroom. A fun game or a coordinated physical activity, or quick divergent thinking challenges or something, or just give them a break for a few minutes, like 2 or 3 minutes break, and then start again. Use signaling to highlight or bolding or underlining or highlighting, or organizing content in bullets. More strategies here. Design instructional materials to reduce the split attention effect. I'll give you an example of the split attention effect on the next slide. This sorry, this is the one. Now look at the first diagram here of the brain. The brain is trying to read off the list. Say A is frontal lobe and B is temporal lobe, and then get the word and fix it on that. It's better to have such diagrams which are on the right, where the word, the descriptive word, and the location are all there in one place, in one location. So the brain doesn't struggle with some information that is away from the main the image. All right. Now, when giving directions, give written and audio instructions. So give written and also audio, so that two senses are working to support uh, your information. All right. Now, a few more suggestions would be images. You can use images, like concepts paired with meaningful images help to direct attention and make sense of the content, increasing possibilities that the learners will remember, and it will not be a overload just by listening and listening. All right. Most of our classrooms in India, that we expect the learners to go on listening, whereas there are other sense organs that we can use for the learning process. The another suggestion is use colorful imagery, as color connects neural pathways and activates sensory stimuli. People remember and relate with colors better than verbal or textual cues alone. Another suggestion would be introduce novelty, something new. Engage students through games or activities or simulation that requires learners to apply the information in unfamiliar contexts. Or some of this learning is taking place automatically. So if you create a positive environment with sufficient resources and stimuli where students will enjoy learning through games or simulations, this is automatic learning, happening without the effort of making them learn. All right. The environment is as important as the information. Now, learners are motivated if the teacher is also listening to them or watching them and is concerned about their progress as well. All right. So there is the emotional security quotient as well. When the learner feels safe, he feels that the teacher is interested in what he is doing and learning and everything, he learns better, or he or she, of course. Encourage positive emotions. Emotions are pivotal to attention, perception, memory, and problem solving, especially in young learners. A lot of the mind is emotion based. Everything, I mean, they deal with the environment emotionally. So emotions are important. So uh, encourage positive emotions, encourage them when they are learning, encourage celebrate milestones and such things. Develop thinking skills like problem solving, makes content more relatable to the real world. So give them real world problems to solve, so they can connect with those problems. Now, brain based learning triggers also the achievement of higher order thinking skills. So, from lower, that is lots, to hots, okay, higher order thinking skills, we can move from gradually from lots to hots. Lessons should include modeling, examples, adaptations for diverse students' needs, or useful learning strategies include also rehearsal, constant rehearsal, elaboration, organization, and review, constant review. That okay, what did we learn yesterday? Let's revise that a little and then go ahead with more information. Let us remember that students also come from different homes and different backgrounds. So they must learn to understand what we expect them to achieve by the end of the lesson. So there are as many backgrounds, as many learners there in front of you. All right. Also, teachers could limit the instructions and convert them into recommendations that I suggest you do this instead of do this, so being authoritative, be more suggestive and more, turn towards recommendations. Look, I recommend that, I suggest that, oh, you could do this, you could try this in another way, for instance. Scaffolding is another good idea. So from basic to complex, chunking knowledge in bits and then moving from, as I said, lots, that is lower order thinking skills, to higher order thinking skills. Chain learning is another very useful strategy. That is learning connected across subjects. For example, when you learn history, you also learn geography. So geographical area also has history in it. So encourage students to make these connections or chains in their mind, where learning is multidisciplinary and connected with other disciplines as well. A very good example is of Chinese students, how they learn, for instance. All right. They don't reread the notes. What we do is we keep on rereading, so in the hope that we will fix it in our minds. What they do is they rewrite. They go on rewriting what they have read in their own words. And each time that they rewrite, they add a little bit more information to what they have written. And that's how it fixes in their heads, their brains. All right. So at least 5 times they rewrite something, and each time they add something, of what they have read. And this makes the text slightly different each time, and it fixes in the mind as well. There is another example of Japanese students. The Japanese students are very humble. They don't study to prove their smartness or to prove how smart they are, or attach themselves to only grades and rankings. All right, they approach learning with curiosity and humility. All right, not pressure and ego and trying to attach their identity to the grades or a fear of failure, for instance. All right, so even these are they're really nice ways to learn. All right, uh, also when we teach, we learn better, so we all of us also evolve our strategies. We also learn our own strategies and use them as we go ahead in our uh, learning and teaching journey. All right, now um, I had mentioned learners emotions. uh, Referring to them, learners are at times exhausted or burdened or really overwhelmed, from all the information and the activities. But teachers must remember to give them some time for themselves, their families, and other studies as well. All right. So activities have to be relevant, have to create emotional connection so that the brain will be able to process the information and transmit the information from short term to long term memory. Now, creating an environment, as I said, that is positive, happy, and secure for the learner helps with the learning. Earlier, I had mentioned a psychologist called Eric Jensen. He is now treated as, considered as the guru of brain-based learning. Look at this as the last strategy. When working on projects, use a to-do list or a blueprint. Okay, active learning involves critical thinking and all those other skills. Now, let's look at Eric Jensen and his tips for his 10 tips, all right, to help with learning for effective brain based learning, as he says. Now, exercise and movement support learning, as I had said. Exercise and movement, that means the movement of the body and exercise of the body, all right. So, this is his tip. Expose students to a variety of physical activities. Encourage them to pick the activity of their choice. The next tip is, when social conditions influence our brain in multiple ways, school behaviors are highly social, all right, social experiences. So, uh, work with reward, acceptance, pain, pleasure, coherence, affinity, and stress. So school behaviors are highly social experiences, and they become encoded through all of these activities, these things that happen at school. The tip that Eric Jensen gives is to use targeted, planned, diverse social groupings with mentoring teams and buddy systems to strengthen pro social uh, conditions. Right? Teacher to student relationships matter, but so do student to student relationships. All right. That means your learners, so take care that those learners are grouped very, they don't know it, but you would do it. Put them in groups that match their abilities, their social positions also, their backgrounds, so that everyone learns from everyone else. Everyone is supported from others, and so that all the weaker ones don't get into one group, for example, just because they're supporting each other emotionally, or all the personality types that are common don't get into one group and then just don't learn, for example. So teachers can actively and very very discreetly put students into certain groups that will help peer to peer relationships. All right, the brain changes every day through its ability to rewire and remap itself via neuroplasticity. Schools can, sorry. Yeah. So schools can introduce skill building, reading, meditation, arts, career, and build thinking skills. All right. Here's the tip: teach attentional skills, memory skills, and processing skills. So all of these, can be your lessons can be turned into some things like that through activities. All right. The next set, here we are. New evidence that suggests the value of teaching content in small chunk sizes. I already mentioned this. Now, why is that? Because students can hold only about 2 to 4 chunks at a time. Now, Eric Jensen's tips are: teachers should teach in small chunks, process the learning, and then rest the brain a little bit. Just vary the activity or give them something else to do for a little bit, just a few minutes, and then go back to it. Give it time to sort of settle down. Okay. Too much content taught in too small a time span means the brain cannot process it. So we simply don't learn it, so it's a big loss actually. The teachers imagine that, oh, yeah, I've delivered so much, I've expected them to learn, but they simply don't. So breaks, recess, and downtime make more sense than content and more content. All right. Certain arts boost attention, working memory, and visual spatial skills. Other acts such as dance or theater and drama, boost these social skills. So empathy, timing, patience, verbal memory, and other transferable skills are also there. Look at Jensen's tip. He says, make arts mandatory. Give students the choice of several forms, support with expert teachers, and you know give them time to excel at it. All right. Arts are a very good support and to the development of the brain's academic operating systems in ways that provide many transferable life skills. All right. Of the hundreds of emotions, only a few are good for learning. That is anticipation. You're anticipating something, or you're curious about something, or you're suspicious, or you are confused, so you want to know more. All right. So all these make you want to learn more or know more. We must teach appropriate emotional states as life skills, that is honor or patience or forgiveness and empathy. So when someone else say wins a small game in the classroom, you know uh, don't teach the students forgiveness. Okay, wow, you have learned, I appreciate, next time I will try to learn more and do my best. So, and it's important to read and manage other emotional states also in the classroom. As I said, young children are emotional. So look at the tip that Jensen provides here. Teachers should build social skills into every lesson. Kids who learn patience, attention, empathy, and cooperation will be better students. All right. The last set of Jensen's tips, very quickly. Chronic stress is a very real issue at schools for both staff and students. I understand about the staff as well as the students. Recent study um, suggests that 30 to 50% of all students feel moderately or severely stressed every day. This issue affects attendance, memory, social skills, and cognition. Jensen says teach students better coping skills, strengthen arts, physical activity, mentoring, downtime, all of these will help. All right. The next one is almost 90% of human brains are found to be atypical, damaged, or in some way not healthy. Okay. We think that we are normal, and then there are other people who are, some of them are mentally challenged, or they have certain problems in learning their, in the brains, etc. But actually research shows that 90% of all the human brains are damaged in some way, or they are not normal in some way. and so on. So most of us are atypical, although what happens is we we consider ourselves normal and some children normal, and then we have extra lessons for those that we consider other enabled. So brain research tells us that there are more atypical students than typical ones with a few differences. All right. Allow kids to celebrate diversity, unique abilities, talents, and interests. Give them the skill sets, relationships, and hope in order to succeed, says Jensen. All right, the last couple of ones. The recent discovery is that memories are not fixed, but instead quite malleable. That means they keep on changing over time. Every student, every time students review, they might change something in their brains, all right? And they often do. They review something, their memory changes. But without review, they are more likely to forget their learning. So, reviewing helps memory. Jensen says that teachers should use several strategies to continually strengthen memory over time instead of assuming that once learned, the memory is preserved. Last one, there have been stunning strides in rehabilitation of brain-based disorders, including Asperger's syndrome, learning delays, dyslexia, and autism. Through aggressive behavioral therapies, new drugs, and revolutionary stem cell implantations. So make sure all teachers, and not just the ones that are looking at special education ones, all right, learn the latest in dealing with special education, learning delay recovery, and most kids can be brought back into regular ed classes, but not with only inclusion only strategies only, all right, but actually uh, dealing with those things, because it's possible now. All right. um, with this we come to the end of our presentation. uh, let's take one last look at our learning outcomes and whether we've met them. One moment. Let's go on to our learning outcome slide. And let's check whether we have actually met our learning outcomes. So we have looked at understanding how the brain works during the learning process. Have we done so? Um, separated the myths from the facts about the brain. Then we have understood cognitive overload, and then we have also gone through some strategies to deal with cognitive overload. All right. So with this, we come to the end of our session for today. Thank you, Burlington English, and thank you to all of you participants who have been so receptive and responsive.
Thank you
Over
so much,
to Jaya.
ma'am. Yeah, there is no question in Q&A section, but thank you so much. It was really engaging, and I saw teachers posting that it's already a myth. Yeah, thank you for busting that myth, and they were really happy with the topic. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you.